Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. I'm Christina Fox, the CEO at Tech Alliance. As the Regional Innovation Center for Southwestern Ontario, Tech Alliance empowers world-class ventures and fuels growth in Canada's innovation economy. We champion and coach entrepreneurs, amplify and impact businesses, and contribute to a bold technology community across Southwestern Ontario. If you'd like to engage with our venture growth team, read stories about innovation that's shaping our community with world-changing ventures, or join other upcoming experiences, I invite you to subscribe to our newsletter or book a discovery call using the links in the chat. We are the place for dreamers, innovators, and world-changing ideas. And in pursuit of creating spaces where innovation thrives, we must be bold, act, and lift others as we rise. And we strive to do that in all that we do. To put it simply, we support entrepreneurs and ventures at every step of the entrepreneurial journey. So before we get started with this much anticipated masterclass today, we've got a few housekeeping points. All participants and your mics are muted, so relax and enjoy this masterclass. This masterclass will be recorded and available for replay on our YouTube channel. And I encourage you to drop any questions that you have for Sarah in the Q&A feature at the bottom of your screen and add any comments in our active chat feature. So in today's masterclass, Elevate Your Brand Online and Beyond, our host, Sarah Lindsay, is a senior digital marketing strategist and SEO lead from Northern Commerce. And she's going to help us navigate the digital landscape, with the destination being content that creates connection and converts to sales. Let's move the dial on ROI. We feel extremely fortunate to have the expertise of both Sarah and Northern Commerce here today. London's own Northern Commerce is one of North America's leading digital experience agencies, one of Canada's top growing companies, and in 2021 was recognized as one of the best workplaces in Canada. It's pretty impressive, to say the least. We love the connection that we have with Northern Commerce, and we love the work that they do across Canada and around the world. Sarah will lead us through how to optimize website content, create and leverage your brand voice, and serve your customers with compelling, conversion-focused content, and so much more. Sarah is an innovative digital marketing strategist with over 6 years of fast-paced agency experience in SEO and digital marketing. She creates and supports the execution of solutions that drive customer acquisition and conversions for businesses through integrated digital marketing solutions encompassing SEO, content, email, and other supporting marketing channels. Being in the business of guiding and connecting and supporting those who are following their world-changing dreams and in the pursuit of creating spaces where innovation thrives, we strive to bring you content like today's masterclass that propels your venture, no matter your business stage, toward success. So let's get started. Sarah, now over to you.
Thank you so much, Christina, and welcome everybody. Thanks for joining this Tech Alliance Masterclass, Elevating Your Brand Online and Beyond. So to get things started, I'll take a quick moment to introduce myself. I studied communications and marketing management and began working at Northern just over 6 years ago. I've had a number of marketing roles focused on various channels. You had a quick overview there as part of the intro, but this includes paid ads in what feels like another life, to be honest, SEO, content, and email marketing. This has led me to my current position as a senior digital marketing strategist here at Northern. In my time at Northern, I worked with both service-based and e-commerce businesses. And what I've learned is that whether you're offering a service or a product, and whichever channels your marketing efforts are focused on, the path to success comes from understanding your audience and really optimizing your content, not only to perform for those algorithms and search engines, but also, most importantly, for people. So we'll start off with a quick look at what I'll be discussing here with everybody today. First, a quick overview of the 3 pillars of marketing your brand and your products, both online and offline. And a bit of a spoiler alert here, because there they are right there. The first is optimizing your website content. This is how to make sure people are actually finding your website. The second is developing your brand voice, and this is how you talk to and interact with your audience, followed by creating compelling content to drive action. What that means is turning your audience into those customers. Finally, at the end, if we have some time, I will be happy to open it to questions and discussion. So here are the 3 main pillars or considerations that I just spoke about when you're thinking about your marketing efforts. The first one is optimizing your website content. Now, I come from a background of very focused on SEO. That's kind of where I started out and where a lot of my passion has has lied over the past several years. And typically, when you hear the word optimization, a lot of people's minds will immediately go to optimizing for search engines. And that's definitely part of it, but it's important not to forget the reason you're optimizing for Google and those search engines is so more interested searchers, and I'm talking humans here, can really find your content, your website, your business, and take the action that's going to drive your goals. So optimization is really a balance between both that more technical search engine point of view, as well as still thinking about your real searchers. Second is developing your brand voice. And this is really how you're going to speak to your audience and customers across all channels. Here, this starts with understanding who your audience and target is and the most effective way to interact with them across all channels, both digital and beyond. And third, there is creating compelling content to drive that action. So, you've got the traffic, you know how you're talking to your audience. Now you need to ensure that the content you're offering is compelling enough to drive that action and turn that audience and traffic into customers. So first up, we'll chat about optimizing your website content. So as I mentioned a minute ago, optimizing your content is really synonymous with SEO, and that stands for search engine optimization in the marketing world. So it's the first step you're going to want to take to make sure that your website and any of the content that you're creating is findable when people are searching queries related to your business. So maybe it's running shoes, maybe it's tutoring services, whatever you're selling and whatever your business goals are, you need to align your website's language with how your users are searching so that they can find you. Ultimately, the goal of optimizing your content and SEO overall is to drive more qualified traffic to your website. The benefit of this is, unlike paid advertising, you don't need to pay to appear where your users are searching. So based on what they're searching again in search engines, if your content is well enough optimized, you're able to rank at the top of that Google page once you're searching again, if it's running shoes, if it's some other type of service. It really appeals to both e-commerce as well as service-based businesses. So we always want to go back to that main point of the goal of SEO, additional traffic that's qualified to take the action and really drive return on your marketing efforts for your business. So SEO is a big topic, and I kind of just wanted to pause here to really mention that it's a big topic, and there are many sides to it that happen on your website, around the page content, as well as off of your website. So this is things like links from other websites, guest blogging, social promotion. There's also a very large technical side to SEO. So it's a very big topic. I wanted to really just mention that so we know here that there is a lot that goes into SEO. But today, not to get into all of that because I would be here for probably days with you all. We're going to really focus on and stick closely to the on-page aspects of optimizing your content. So this will get you started on the areas of optimization for your website and your business that are really easiest to take advantage of and implement and see that impact from. This boils down to appropriate keyword research and targeting, and creating that content that's relevant to what your audience is searching. So how do you know what your audience is searching is probably the first question I'd imagine a lot of people would have pop up in their brain. We call this keyword research, and this is a process where you go through and you identify the phrases, terms, and questions that your audience is searching. The purpose of this is it allows you to better understand how your audience is searching and identify which keywords you should be targeting and they're really searching in their search engine discoveries. So this will help you include those appropriate terms when you're writing your website content. So got a nice breakdown there of the purpose and the benefits of what you're really going to do and think about while you're learning how your users are searching. There are a couple of tools that you can use, and I use in my day-to-day job to generate keywords and really understand those traffic trends. Selecting the appropriate keywords includes understanding not only which keywords your audience is searching, with a lot of these tools can help you with. So the intent will, change based on your business and based on business goals. Something like Answer the Public or some more forum-based websites are really great at generating those informational content keywords. So the types of questions that your audience is asking, and even beyond that, the conversations that they're having around those topics. So there's a lot of good kind of mining that can happen from research there. There are also tools like Ahrefs and SEMrush that are great for pulling competitor keywords. Again, a lot of these tools, they will have free options. They do have paid options as well. And then Google Keyword Planner is good for transactional keywords. So again, depending on what the goals of your business are and what your strategy really looks like, you could be using a combination of these tools, or you could be using manual searching as though you are a user navigating the search results pages. Typically, when you're searching something like that, you'll get into different intents and different types of keywords that you're going to want to research. So on top of generating these keyword ideas, you're also going to want to look at the most appropriate keywords and opportunities based on traffic, intent, competition, click-through rate, and more. So to get started here, it really does, like I said, start with understanding how and what your users are searching. And then beyond that, you're looking again at the intent to make sure that you are targeting those keywords that are going to drive value for your business and really drive that qualified traffic. I wanted to put a quick note here as well, not to underestimate the value of your customer-facing teams. So like I said, there are a lot of tools and a lot of time you can spend really looking into how your users are searching and what they're searching. But your customer-facing teams are a great source of potentially untapped potential, where they're interacting with your audience. They know what they're asking. So these people and these teams are really great for leveraging that insight that is coming straight from the source. So in terms of optimizing your web content, there are a lot of opportunities when we're looking at where we're optimizing on SEO. And I've got an example that will explain each of these terms in the following slides. But when we're looking at our keywords and we've collected those keywords, we're looking at where we're actually using those keywords on your website. So meta titles, descriptions, URLs. Again, you'll see an example of that in just one second. That's an opportunity to really target those keywords to ensure that you're able to get your website in front of those people searching on Google. In addition to those more, I'll call them technical elements, the copy that you use on your page within your paragraphs and your heading and just throughout the content on the page is another area where we would be utilizing that keyword research and really optimizing for those keywords. So here's an example of a search engine's results page, also known as a SERP. So if you hear me refer to it as a SERP, search engine's results page is what that stands for. This is a search that I've done here for e-commerce agency, and you can see our northern website snippet there has been returned to me once I have searched that keyword. In terms of the anatomy of the SERP and the results that you see on it, this full thing is what we would call a snippet, which breaks down into several elements, including the URL, which is highlighted here, the meta title, and the meta description. So each of these areas is where you have an opportunity to incorporate those keywords that we just talked about and really make your content more discoverable. Here are a couple other examples from our northern website. So we've got our first one, the e-commerce digital advertising page, and our e-commerce web development page. So as you can see, both of those are optimized for keywords within each of those areas we just saw on those previous slides. Important note here to also realize is that each of these includes a CTA or call to action. And you'll want to keep this in mind a bit while we go through this masterclass today, talking about driving action and creating compelling content. Again, we're writing for our users here. We are not just writing for search engines. And a quick note on keywords, it can be very tempting to want to push as many keywords as you want into your content. So I wanted to include a note here that keyword stuffing is bad and your content should not be overloaded with these keywords. You really want to hit that right balance between optimizing your content for the keywords, but also ensuring that it still reads naturally. Again, you're writing for your readers and searchers first, and search engines like Google second. The goal of this content is really to provide those meaningful results and make them relevant to your website. So this is, why we're talking about users over robots here. Your user is always going to win in terms of, priority over writing for those robots. And there's a couple of reasons for this. One of them is that tech platforms are always changing and they're really outside our control. So our search engine algorithm updates, are something that happen and are rolled out by Google on a pretty frequent basis. Again, we don't have any control over when these happen or what changes are made. So to really put all your efforts around gaming that algorithm, and I'll cover this in the next point, you want to make sure that that's not your approach. You want to make sure that you are doing this for users ultimately. Another tech platform element that's always changing is the browser and security updates. We've seen this in the past with Google Analytics not providing our searched keywords anymore. So we can't see what search terms somebody has typed in for the most part in Google Analytics. Instead, we have not provided, which is not as helpful. And then, also more recently, third-party cookie tracking, which it impacts, I'd say, the ad side of things a little bit more than it impacts SEO. But it's still a great point of things that are outside our control. So, if we're ever in a situation where, again, these browsers are not providing us this data and we're not able to collect it, we really want to be able to understand our audiences beyond just how our content and websites work for search engines. Meeting the needs of your users is always going to beat out trying to game the algorithm. And these long-term gains are going to come from really speaking to your audience and creating that compelling content versus trying to, again, going back to keyword stuffing, trying to stuff those keywords in there or build links or something like that. You might see short-term gains from that, but sooner or later it's going to likely catch up to you, and you're going to lose that benefit, that short-term benefit, potentially to the detriment pretty early on into that. So it's not worth the stress of waiting for something to change that you don't have control over. Search engines are always going to reward relevance and intent. And then understanding and resonating with your audience's needs. So this is very, again, important. I'm probably going to say it many times within the presentation, but again, your traffic isn't going to translate into conversions if you don't understand who your audience is and what you want from them. So optimizing your website content, again, that's the first part of this equation. And we've got success for elevating your brand online through deriving that traffic and really getting in front of more qualified searchers. So next up, creating your brand voice and appealing to that audience within that traffic that you're driving. So I want to start out this section by saying, don't be like Michael Scott here. Sometimes I don't even know, sometimes I'll start a sentence and I don't even know where it's going. I just hope that I find it along the way. This is not the strategy you should or are hopefully not using when you are creating content and speaking to your audience. Like I've said, it's important to know what you want to say and how you want to say it when you're talking to your audience, both online and offline. So as important as a piece of the puzzle that it is, SEO and optimization, it only takes you so far. And I don't say that to downplay the value of SEO or properly optimized content, because it's a huge driver of both traffic and revenue. But more to say, you can optimize for search engines and traffic all day, but if you aren't speaking to the right people in the right way, then your traffic isn't going to translate to its full potential of driving more conversions. Simply put, your brand voice is the voice, tone, and words that you use to communicate and speak to your audiences across touch points. So notice I'm saying audience is plural. You may have different types of users who have different needs and goals, and your brand voice is really going to help you speak in a consistent way to each of your audience groups while still addressing those different needs. So keep that in mind because we're going to talk more about targeting and being very compelling to your audience in order to take action later. So your brand voice is going to be based on things like the personality you want to convey, the values and goals of your business to really align with that audience that you're speaking to and driving your results. So the first piece of the puzzle here is personas. And when you're creating your brand voice, start by thinking about who your audience is. Like I said in that previous slide, you'll likely have groups of people who share similar goals and demographics. And this is what we would call personas. So get to know the characteristics that make up each of these groups so that you can understand how and what you're writing for them and create a voice that appeals to and engages them. Your brand voice is also going to be made up of the language that you use. So building from your personas, part of creating your brand voice is using language that your audience will identify with. So for example, if your target audience is younger, you'll likely want to be using, you will want to be using language that resonates with them. But using that same language with an older generation likely will serve to potentially alienate and confuse them. So again, it goes back to really based on your personas, understanding how you should be communicating with them and the types of language that you should be using. Keeping your language as simple as possible when communicating to your audience, considering your industry or your audience's education level is also important. So you may want to avoid things like jargon and slang, or you may not, again, depending on how you want to speak to your audience. The main takeaway there is just to ensure that your audience is positioned to understand you and how you're speaking to them. So you're really able to build up that connection and relationship with them and drive action. And then the third piece here will be consistency. So your brand voice is something that will guide your language and messaging across channels, both online and offline, so you can build a cohesive brand. So this includes things like spelling, words you will or will not use, and even emojis. So if you have a more playful, conversational brand voice, you may incorporate emojis into your content. But if you're a more serious and professional industry or business, or you've decided on that as your brand voice and how you want to appeal to your customers, you may want to steer clear of things like emojis and that playful language. So this is really going to help make sure that while you're speaking to your audience, whether it's digital channels or offline, you're really being consistent in the types of language that you're using and how you're speaking to them. And this will ensure that your audience has a very cohesive experience across all of your channels. So it doesn't feel like they're speaking, to one person or company through maybe your social channels or email, and then they have a completely different experience, or it sounds like they're speaking to somebody else while they're looking or speaking to you through other channels online and offline. So here's an example of what you may outline when you're creating a brand voice. So this can be as much of what you are as much as it is what you are not. So knowing both puts you in a great position to really hit that same voice, like I just talked about, across all your channels, no matter who's writing the content. So an example here, a brand voice may be clear but not blunt. It may be casual, not inappropriate. hip but not pretentious. So it really does benefit you from going through this exercise and really deciding how do you want to speak to your audiences. Hitting that tone and what we do want to do as much as the lines we don't want to cross, and how we don't want to communicate with our customers while we're speaking to them. So I have an example here on the right-hand side. This is a screenshot from MailChimp. They are an email service provider. They have a content style guide that outlines their voice and their tone and exactly how they want to speak to their customers when they create any kind of content. So most importantly, this really aligns with their goals, which is a great thing to highlight here because, again, like I've said a couple times already, and I'll continue to say, connecting your goals and values with how you speak when you create your content and the types of content that you are creating, communicating with your audiences across the channel, that's all going to make creating your brand voice just a little bit easier. When you understand what your goals are and the personas and people that you're speaking to, knowing that first is a great puzzle piece to have to start building that foundation and really fleshing out what your brand voice looks like. So here's another example. This is one of the clients that we work with here at Northern. Their brand voice is conveyed as human, conversational, and upbeat. They're clear and educational, but they want to be so in a welcoming manner and speak like a helpful friend. So based on that identified brand voice and tone, you can see how that translates to their social channels to appeal and connect with that audience. So they really know who their personas are and what they're interested in. And they've created a brand voice around that to start creating a relationship, creating compelling content, and really speaking to their audience in a way that they know is going to resonate. They do this across all their channels, including social, as seen here. So a couple examples, both within the imagery of the post itself, as well as the content that is being that is accompanying those images. It also goes across, all their digital channels right into what's included in the box when you actually purchase this cleanse. So what this company does is, they sell juice cleanses. They're an e-commerce company. So they have a website that you shop, they run email campaigns, and ultimately they are selling and delivering those cleanses to their customers. So this brand voice really does encompass all of those channels. So when we're writing web copy, when we're creating email campaigns, again, right down to the contents of the package that's delivered with the purchases. So again, having and understanding your brand voice really benefits you across all channels, both digital and more traditional or offline channels. Oh, I've clicked here. There we go. So again, to wrap up this section, creating your brand voice is the targeting part of this equation that we are trying to really build up here when we're talking about successful marketing. Last but not least is going to be creating and serving compelling content for your audience. So by this point, we're driving traffic through our optimizations that we talked about when we're thinking about keywords and SEO and really utilizing those queries that we've uncovered in our website content. So we're driving that traffic. We also know how we should and how we want to be speaking to our audience based on our personas and our brand voice that we have now developed. So these are all great and they're 100% required. It's building that base foundation of taking your marketing and really executing. But the reality is that almost no one is going to land on a website ready to convert. You definitely will have people, and that's the ideal situation, that we have these people who land on our website and make a purchase or take whatever action you'd like them to take right away. That's the dream in marketing. But I mean, reality is you're probably very likely going to have to nurture many of these people through that funnel and into a position where they're ready to purchase. So now you need to create and serve that compelling content that makes them want to take action using timely and relevant messaging. When you start to think about creating this compelling content, you're going to want to consider a couple things. First is the stage your audience is at. Are they at the top of the funnel in the awareness stage? Are they closer to the bottom of the funnel where they're almost ready to take action and convert? And how are we going to push them along to that next level in the funnel? So ultimately, everybody's goal is for that conversion and to make money from their marketing effort. So how are we going to take them from the stage that they're in now and really provide value to continue to push them along to make that ultimate purchase or conversion, whatever that looks like for your business? Number two is how you're going to use your marketing channels and different touch points to do that. So we call that omni-channel marketing. We'll chat about that in a little bit more detail in just one second. But really, how are you leveraging multiple channels and multiple touch points to ensure, again, that you're moving them through that funnel into this next stage, ready to purchase? And then finally, when you have the opportunity to speak more directly to your audience, how are you doing that with things like segmentation and personalized experiences? So based on the interests of your audience, again, the stage of the funnel that they're in, you're likely going to have people who break down into these cohorts who are able to be and should be marketed to a little bit differently. So again, if they have shared interests or you're trying to move them through that funnel, how are we doing that in a way that they're really going to feel like they're getting value out of this experience and out of the content that you are creating for them? So that's a lot to do, moving people and understanding where they are in the funnel, moving them through, really pushing that ultimate goal of conversions. It's a lot to do. We all know that's a lot to do. It's likely why you're attending today, but you're really going to get the most out of your marketing efforts when you use more than one channel to interact with your audience. So that's what we call omni-channel marketing. This is where the and beyond comes in from this presentation. A lot of this is very focused on digital, especially with the boom of e-commerce and the boom of online marketing in the last year and a half. That digital is a very big opportunity, but omni-channel marketing can go beyond that as well. So there's omni-channel within digital, and then think even beyond that. So you have all these channels available to you that you currently or you aim to leverage, and really thinking about how do you make them work together and really reach and nurture your audience wherever they might be. So here are some examples of the types of content that you may use in your marketing strategy and how they can be leveraged at different stages in the marketing funnel. So this is not a hard and fast rule of where these fall. I've kind of broken it down into, where you could leverage some of these types of content and channels based on where your users may be falling in that funnel, whether it's awareness and informational, right down to that engagement and conversions that we're seeing from people who are more to the mid to bottom funnel section of the marketing journey. The main idea here is really just that you can and should be utilizing multiple channels to get the most out of your efforts. So we have a couple examples that I'm excited to share of clients and other businesses that we've seen that do this really well. So here's an example of what we're able to implement for that juice cleanse company that we talked about a little while ago, who is leveraging their brand voice on social and across all their channels very well. This is another example of multiple channels that we use in order to really push people from that awareness stage down into ultimately purchasing one of these cleanses. So the first thing that we did was create content that was optimized and targeted toward a topic that our audience was searching. So think back to that keyword research that we initially talked about. We went in and we searched using some of these tools, using some primary data, what our audience was really interested in and how we could create something that answered their questions. So in this case, it was, how long should you do a juice cleanse? This was our first step here. We're driving traffic. We're optimizing for this traffic to really get in front of that audience. Within this piece of content, then what we did was we created a value add resource where you can see in that bottom screenshot there, once they get through this very informational and awareness stage content, we have a CTA that drives action for them. So our ultimate goal here, again, is going to be selling a cleanse. So we included a CTA that linked out to another resource that was created, which was a quiz that tells them which cleanse is going to be right for them. So that drives engagement. So we've got the traffic to the page. Now we are looking at how are we driving action from that page and getting them from thinking about, how long should I do one for? Should I do one right into this resource that now tells them what they're looking for and really provides that content. So we're driving engagement with that traffic now. Finally, we followed up with an email that you can see on the right-hand side here that was emailed to users who had done this quiz and provided their email address. So this included their results, as you can see, but it also included a promotion to save on their purchase. So we leveraged that action and those completions of the quiz even more to take it to that ultimate step to drive action and really drive purchases and drive solid revenue through that. So we've taken those people who came in unsure about maybe what even this is all about, and we've provided them value add content throughout the stages that really ultimately ended them up at a position where they made that purchase. The great thing about this tactic too is this is an e-commerce example, but it can be leveraged for both e-com and service-based businesses and websites. So it's a really good example, again, of that omni-channel marketing where you're using different channels and different tactics all to create a larger experience that then really leverages the traffic into conversions. Because like I said at the beginning, you can drive traffic to your website all day long, but if you're not nurturing them or providing the value or the direction to take an action that's going to benefit your business, that additional traffic doesn't mean too much to you as a business owner. So switching gears a little bit here to an e-commerce example. This is a watch company, and they have a really great e-commerce product detail page. So this would be more focused on bottom funnel conversions to purchase the watch. So a little bit different audience that we're appealing to here compared to that piece of content that we just talked about, where we really needed to get them from top of funnel to bottom. Here, while people are, navigating through the website and landing on this product detail page, many of the people who ultimately end up here may well already be poised to purchase. This company does a really good job at creating value on this product detail page, really to compel people to take action. So they have multiple product shots and views. They have a description that reflects their brand personality. They have benefit callouts, lifestyle photos, details and specs, customer reviews. There's a lot going on here, but when you're looking at this, thinking of all the value that it's providing and really, selling that last step of ultimately purchasing this watch, it does a really great job of that. The CTA is also a very important element to this page. We'll talk about this in a couple of slides, but the CTA to add the cart, so the call to action to actually add that watch to your cart and purchase it, is above the fold before users start to scroll. So that important content is really high up on the page. So again, if they need any kind of push to ultimately make that conversion, there are a lot of great elements and a lot of great trust points in here, from the reviews to the different views of the watch, that is really compelling to see as a user of the website. So whatever your industry, whatever your product, whatever your service. Driving action depends on, again, knowing and understanding your audience and really providing that value across the multiple channels and being intentional with the tactics that you're using to drive action. So for e-commerce product pages, like we just looked at, that might be reviews, that might be multiple product shots. For service-based companies, it may be testimonials or resources. But really at the end of the day, you want to be thinking about the content that you're creating and how is that providing value to your audience to get them to that end goal of making a purchase. Here are a couple of final notes that I just wanted to share on creating compelling content. And these ones are quick and easy things that you can do on your website, probably right away. In addition to that larger strategy that, what we just talked about may take a little bit more planning. It may take a little bit more technical implementation. These writing tips are really ones that you, again, can implement right away. So breaking up your content is very important. Shorter content in little bite-sized pieces is much easier to read, skim, digest. So that's a really great way to ensure that people are remaining engaged with your content, whether that is a content resource or it is a service page. Like I just spoke about, incorporating calls to actions to drive your audience to take that desired action, and then keeping that as much as you can above the fold. So that's before you have to scroll on your page, whatever you're looking at, to see the rest of the content. So it's very important, again, to try to keep that as high as possible. If you want somebody to see something on the page, keep it above that fold. Just to drive that point home a little bit here, this is a breakdown of the percentage of viewing time that people tend to see when they are looking at a web page. So you can see that 57% of this time is spent above the fold. So again, it really just drives home that point that creating copy that you really want them to see or driving an action, as much as you can keep it above that fold, is really going to increase the ease at which people can take action and ultimately drive that conversion for you. So that was a lot. If you're going to take anything away from this presentation, these points are what I hope it would be. One, I feel like I said it so many times, but I can't overstate the importance of really understanding your audience's wants, needs, and goals. That's really, like I said, going to be your foundation of a successful marketing campaign, whether it's digital channels or more traditional offline channels. We want to write for our audience first and search engines second. Again, you don't want to be in a situation where you either have a lot of traffic that ultimately isn't driving you any revenue, or you get into a situation where you've optimized so much for search engines that something changes and you don't rank quite as well anymore. Understanding your audience is really, really going to mitigate that. You have an engaged audience. That's much more important than, those robots that we want to really write for those users over those robots. Creating content that appeals to your audience. Again, we just talked about this. So we really want to give them a reason to act. And then considering the phase of your customer's journey and how you can leverage those different channels to nurture them from the awareness stage or the engagement stage, right down to making that conversion and that purchase or whatever that looks like for your business. So to put it all together here, we've got optimizing your website content for that additional qualified traffic, creating your brand voice, which is really targeting who you want to speak to and how you want to be speaking to them, creating compelling content that is going to nurture your audience and really lead them to decide that they would like to take that action that your business would like them to take. And at the end of the day, the goal for all of this is going to be, additional revenue for you and your business, and really a return on the investment that you're putting into those marketing services and those different channels. So that wraps us up. That was a lot, and I hope that you found value and you're excited to start elevating your brand online and beyond.
Thanks, Sarah. That was really awesome. I loved how you took us through kind of the journey from top of the funnel right to the bottom of the funnel and conversion, talking about nurturing your prospective customers and your repeat customers by focusing on the optimizing the content, really having a good personal brand voice and understanding what a brand voice looks like for your company. And then certainly, driving that through that compelling content. Love the tips and tricks, love the reference to above the fold, and really practical examples of where you see successful companies converting customers based on the content that they're presenting to their customers. So if you would like, you can go ahead and stop screen sharing and we could do a bit of a Q&A session. Awesome. Okay, so we do have a question in the chat. So I think I might start with that one first because it's really specific to content that you've presented. And then I've got a couple of questions of my own. So if there's anyone in our audience that would like to drop a question in the chat, in the Q&A feature, go ahead and do that now. And we'll engage Sarah in these questions. So the first one, actually, we've got more than one question. So this is really awesome. Tell us more about search engine results pages. And is there a way of using them to compare campaigns?
I may need a little bit of clarification when you are talking about comparing campaigns. But in terms of when you're searching on that results page, you can definitely keep an eye on, you're going to see likely your competitors also optimizing for a lot of those keywords, especially if they're your money keywords. So keeping an eye on who you're seeing ranking and what types of content that they have on that page that's ranking is a really good research to undertake. So some of those tools that I provided will do that for you. But again, not everybody has a budget to pay for those tools. So you can do it manually, where I would just think of what keywords, again, from that research that you want to really rank for and see how your competitors are incorporating them. Are you seeing them in the meta titles and descriptions like we talked about? What kind of content is on that page? It's a really good opportunity to see what's working for them and kind of take your learnings from that and replicate it as you can for your own business.
Okay. Thank you. Another question is, what additional tips do you have for optimizing for recruitment use? So for example, gaining brand awareness as an employer of choice.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I think that would go beyond, there would be a lot of good opportunities beyond just SEO. So if there are particular jobs that you are wanting to promote, there's definitely the opportunity to, again, target those keywords for it. But if we're talking a little bit further around more brand exposure to this, to really have that recruitment, I think that there is a lot of benefit in those additional channels. So that's where you may want to be looking at how are you leveraging the content on your website? How are you leveraging your social channels to really start to create that one-on-one or that conversation with your target audience? So like I said in the presentation, leveraging those different channels and kind of thinking about where your users are and how they are using those channels really is going to guide where you want to focus. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity in something like social to really engage with that audience if that's where they are.
Okay. A question here related to keyword planning then. Can you expand a little bit more on how you use Reddit to do that?
Yeah, so like I said in the presentation, Reddit is really good for keeping a pulse on what topics your audience is talking about. So this skews more into the types of content that you want to create or resources that people are looking for. One of the things you'll be thinking about when you're creating that content is, what are my users actually talking about? So if you're able to find a related subreddit or questions on Quora or something like that, where people are talking about this and really engaging in that conversation, what that tells you is there is, again, conversation happening around this. This is something that people are looking to other people to answer for them. So if you can do that as a brand, it's going to be great for you, because that's going to almost be, I'll call it like the source of truth for people looking for that content. So it's a really good opportunity, number one, to kind of justify, if you need to do that, why that's a topic you want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And number two, there's your audience right there waiting to be engaged with. So it really is sometimes like a casual search through. Sometimes, again, you have those subreddits are related and you're kind of keeping a pulse on, but really to just take the time to act as though you were your customer, and really start to get yourself in that mindset.
Okay. And another question came in, what if I use the lead tools to create keywords, but it doesn't work? Have you ever come across that, even, with a self-guided experience where you've got a client company that might be doing that on their own, and any tactics that you might have had to help them to adjust that, or any other tips on this, on what someone might be able to do if the tools to create keywords aren't working for them?
Yeah. So in terms of, the way that the question's phrased at the beginning almost sounds like when I was talking about really leveraging your internal teams.
Yeah.
That's kind of the starting point. That's where I like to start. It can be really hard to stare at a blank page and think like, what keywords are we looking at here? So in terms of the tools not working, I would imagine that would be a situation where you've talked to your teams, or you've kind of gathered these keywords and there isn't a lot of traffic around them. And that can be difficult. And it really does depend on your industry, your locale, stuff like that. But, you know, there, there's always going to be keywords that drive, even if it's a little bit of traffic, that those 10 searches per month, whatever it is, we see a lot of impact from targeting those keywords
Yeah.
over time. Like I talked about those long-term gains, sorry, that's where you're going to see a lot of that from. So, even if you're finding keywords that only have 10 searches per month, it still can really be worth investing in those. So it really is a balance between, I'm not seeing a lot of traffic for these keywords, but let me start there and kind of dig into other opportunities that may, exist that we haven't thought of.
Okay. I've got a great question, and I'm sure, just about everybody on our live masterclass has asked this once or twice in their experience in marketing campaigns, and sort of the drip and the binge, and kind of the metrics that present as a result of your customers' behavior or prospective customers' behavior or your extended audience. The question came in as, we've been pitched on impressions, but they seem really vague. I really only care about conversions.
Mm-hmm.
So if someone clicks, that's a good sign, but the supposed impressions don't seem to impress me.
Mm-hmm.
Am I missing something? So I love the fact that someone asked the question, because often we'll see vanity metrics and say, but what does this actually mean?
Mm-hmm.
And, is there a length of time that you need to build at the top of the funnel before you actually start to see it shifting to the middle of the funnel and actually converting at the end of the funnel? What's sort of your, how do you respond to that? I'm sure you've got client companies that say that to you guys all the time. And how do you work through that with them?
Yeah, so the impression side of things is a really it's spoken about a lot on the ad side of things,
Yeah.
which is it's actually a good, I like this question because it lends itself well to talking about how you really want to make sure that your paid ad side of things and
Mhm.
your organic side they are working together. Um, in terms of the impressions, you definitely like spot on in that question, that you definitely want to see like, okay, great impressions. Like it can be a valuable thing to know when you're talking about how large is this audience that I'm talking to.
Mhm.
But again, you're really going to want to see how do those convert to conversions. So that's something that we always tie that together. So I really would recommend, if you are being served those impression metrics, really, like that question already alluded to, really digging in and saying, okay, what's our plan from there? And that could be focused on your paid ad side of things, but again, to use SEO and paid ads together is very beneficial, because you're getting even more of those impressions, but you're still you're driving more of that traffic. You're really converting more of that traffic. So yeah, it can be tricky. Some of them, keyword rankings is going to be like another kind of, I'll call it vanity metric on the SEO side, similar to impressions, where you want those impressions, you want those keyword rankings, but at the end of the day, make sure that your strategy and your tactics has a plan for what you were doing with that traffic to get it to that conversion stage.
Awesome. So I'm going to ask one final question. We have maybe a couple minutes left before I thank you and say goodbye to everybody today. But I know, given that you're such a significant thought leader, the tenure that you've had at Northern, and your own expertise, a question is, what digital marketing tactics do you recommend as the most valuable to take advantage of everything you've already presented today? And then is there anything you would rank sort of in order? So if you're leaving kind of one last nugget in addition to the incredible content that you've shared today in this masterclass, what would you like to leave everybody with?
Yeah, in terms of which digital marketing or marketing tactic is the most valuable one, or which one I would recommend, it'll depend on the goals of your business. They can all drive really great engagement, conversions, return on investment. So it really does depend, again, understanding where your audiences are and how you're really driving them through. So what I would leave everybody with is really to think about, if you want to focus on one channel to get started, that's totally fine. And it's, there could be a lot of value in that too, but to kind of future plan, to think about how are these channels working together, which other channels can I really incorporate into this to create that nurturing journey from awareness right down to conversion.
Right on. And I think too, like layering on some of the content you presented, like when you think of your customer persona or your multiple customer personas and understanding where is your audience, it's based on really deeply understanding your customer persona and then that customer journey map. And then what are the touch points and how are you nurturing and how are you actually driving value for them to become closer to your brand, become closer to your product or service. So I think it's so interesting that talking about brand voice today and really diving into what does that mean from the customer lens and how then do they react and interact with your brand, and is your brand and your brand voice and your compelling content speaking to the person that you think is going to convert, is going to be a purchaser of your product or your service. So I love the way that you've fashioned your masterclass today, and want to offer my sincere thanks. I had a riot spending a little bit of time in the back end with you and just watching you go through this masterclass. Great opportunity to be refreshed on, things that we might know and things that we might not remember. And looking at sort of the content that you've displayed today and recognizing those who are in our live audience today and the journeys and the business stage that they're at with their own ventures. There's something for everybody, whether you're a novice, just having a look at this as an opportunity to grow your company, or truly a larger company or a later stage company that's really looking to finesse and fine tune their brand online and offline. And I think you've really fine tuned and focused on all of that opportunity. And I thank you for that. You were fabulous. You offered practical information. And so thank you for presenting such robust information and spending that time with us today. Practical takeaways and your expertise were quite outstanding. I was really trying to come up with something really cheeky to say about all of the plants in your apartment, but I've got nothing. I love
yeah, when I was thinking that too, I can see one in the corner of my eye here. I have a lot and it's not a very big apartment. So
I wanted to move a plant in my background just to pay homage to your personality. So that's a wrap for us today, Sarah. Again, thanks so much for your time. And until we see you in person, until we meet everyone again, take care, everybody, be well, and we'll see you again soon. Bye for now.
Bye.